Right. Okay, folks, sorry for the delay. The technical communications problems at a technology conference. My name is Josephine Walsh. I'm a career development consultant in the Career Development Centre here in NUI Galway, and I'm delighted to be invited to introduce the next speaker and be MC for this event. And first of all, congratulations to the students who put this together. I think it's an amazing event and exactly the kind of thing that we encourage students to go to, and it's a great opportunity to talk to employers, and so use the time well while you're here. So without further ado, I'll introduce you to Eugene Garvan from Avaya, and Avaya is a company in Galway with a very long history in Galway, 40 years in Galway last year as Nortel. Most of you would, any of you who are as old as I am, very few in the room, will remember Nortel. So we're delighted to welcome Eugene back to his alma mater. He's a graduate of NUI Galway, a Bachelor of Electronic Engineering, and so it's wonderful to have him back and working with the company. He's going to tell us about Avaya, who have been not just responding to the phenomenal changes in communications, but actually leading the way. So I'll hand you over to Eugene. Thanks,
okay.
Eugene.
Thank you, now. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be back on a familiar turf, I would put it that way. So I just parked over near the old tennis courts. People might remember there used to be tennis courts out there, and I used to play there quite a bit when I used to live actually in Newcastle. So and did engineering here. So you're very welcome. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, I suppose, about communications, because that's what Avaya are all about. And one of the themes of what I'm going to talk about really is that of a future maker. And what is a future maker? A future maker is somebody who changes the future. In what they do, in what they invent, in what they give to society, they make a change for the future and for the good. And I want to talk to you about, I suppose, how perhaps you can achieve that in Avaya. So I've got it's a journey in space and time, and we're going to need a little bit of a time machine to get there. So I'm going to step back a couple of thousand years, actually, at the dawn of communications. And then I'm going to bring you forward. And as I come forward, I'm going to talk about some of the people who were future makers. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Avaya and how Avaya, what we do today globally, and what we do in Galway, and what you might be able to do if you were to come and work in Avaya. So, early communications. 2,000 years ago, roughly 2,000 years ago, smoke signals, right? We've all seen them. They actually originated in China. And the Great Wall of China, they used to use the smoke signals to actually indicate oncoming invaders between the towers on the Great Wall. And that was the kind of communication medium they had. They had nothing else, right? It was visual, it was one-way communication, it was a broadcast communication, so everybody could actually see it, so even your enemies could see the smoke signals. And obviously if you had bad weather or you had fog, well, they were no good to you. So it wasn't a very good means of communication. So as we moved on 1,000 years ago, the carrier pigeon. And it's interesting, the carrier pigeon actually is still being used. It's still being used to relay messages in cities, believe it or not, and even carry something, carry a small object. Of course, today, the replacement for the carrier pigeon is the drone. We're all very familiar with the drone. It's not really seen as a communication device, it's more of a transport device now. But in the day of the pigeon, that was the way of getting a message to somebody at a distance from you. It was the only way you could do it, unless you actually got on horseback or ran to the person. And if we step it back a little bit more, 1860, so we're getting closer now, the Pony Express. People remember the Pony Express and the kind of interesting job criteria. They've got the kind of job requirements for the Pony Express there, which is an interesting read. Young, skinny, wily fellas. So there's no concept of having girls doing this. It was all very discriminatory in those days. A tough job. You had to go and carry your package, which would be letters or parcels, small items, on your horseback across, hundreds of miles. I mean, today, that's the post office. That's what they do today. And I suppose we've seen the trend, if you look at in terms of communications, how many people write letters anymore? You use the post office to actually, again, transport goods. You buy stuff off eBay, off Amazon. It comes to you through on post. So it's kind of changed. Something that was a communications vehicle has now become literally just a medium for transport. So let's move it on a bit. Back in the it's interesting, the whole telegraph. The telegraph is actually what replaced the Pony Express. It got rid of that aspect of the Pony Express because you could now telegraph stuff over a wire, and that's actually what got rid of it. That's what obsoleted the Pony Express eventually. And there was actually two developments at that time. There was the electrical aspect of it, the transport, and then there was the protocol, if I call it that, the Morse code. How you could actually send a message and actually decode it on the other side. So these are really the first principles, I suppose, of communications that were back in, I suppose, the early 1800s. Let's move it on again, the telephone. And I suppose close to anybody involved in communications, Avaya's heritage is in the world of Bell Labs and Lucent. And Avaya really only came in the 2000s. That's when Avaya actually became the company it is today, which is much more a communications applications company. But in the old days, our heritage was the telephone, and it goes back to Bell Labs and Alexander Graham Bell. And he is like a first example of a future maker, someone who developed a new concept that changed the world. So moving it on a bit more, radio. Now radio was significant. With telephone you needed to have a wire, you needed cabling. The concept of radio, in this case it was broadcast radio, but that's ultimately the precursor to what we have in terms of mobile communications today. So I show a picture of Marconi here. He gets a lot of the credit, but there were a lot of other people actually involved in the development of radio and wireless as we know it. So moving on again, television. We're into the 1900s now, so we're getting a bit more modern here. John Logie Baird. So, again, an innovator, somebody who had to create the concept of television. And television, again, involved two things. It was the development of the cathode ray tube, the actual device to view the television. And there was, again, the transmission system to transmit the television. And I suppose he was credited with the first live transmission between London and Glasgow of television, about 400 miles. And that was kind of the first television that we ever had. So again, a future maker, somebody who pulled together existing technologies, work that other people had probably done, added his own work and pulled it together into something that, as I say, changed the world. So some other innovations, I suppose, if we get more modern, the world of internet communications, and this is the world that we now live in. And you can see some of the kind of key milestones there. 1981, the first mobile phone network. The internet, 1983. And I suppose in the 2000s, we've got into the whole world of internet telephony. And I know all about internet telephony because I actually worked on it back in 1999 in Nortel. And we actually developed products in Nortel that did voice over IP and internet telephony for business users in those days. And obviously it became much more commercial today. If you've got a UPC box at home and a telephone hanging off it, you're using internet telephony. 2007, and that's the first of the videos that have been causing us a bit of trouble this morning, but the launch of the iPhone. And I suppose one of the future makers I really admire is a person called Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs. And I'll just play you this little clip of the launch of the iPhone, and it kind of gives you an idea of, again, an innovator. He was a business person, he was also a technical person, and he drove massive innovation, and he did it multiple times. He didn't just do it once, he did it multiple times. So let's just see if the video works for us. Hopefully. I don't know if we got sound on that. Yeah,
Still nothing. No sound even on the computer.
Okay. I'll talk over it. So apologies for that. You can get this video on YouTube if you go in and look at the launch of the iPhone. So 2007, so everybody knows about the iPhone now. Basically what Steve presented at this presentation was he presented, he kind of in a tongue-in-cheek way, he presented 3 devices, or he pretended there was 3 devices. One was a brand new iPod with a fantastic screen. One was a telephone, effectively a new mobile phone, and the other was an internet access device. And he said it about 3 or 4 times, and then effectively people got the message. It was the one device. It was the iPhone that did all 3 things. You could do your music recordings, you could do your telephony, and you could do your internet access. It's fantastic, right? Also, he talked about some of the previous innovations that Apple introduced, like the Macintosh and the iPod itself. And each of those was fantastic game changers. They just changed the world we live in, the iPod and the iTunes concept. So I really look at somebody like Steve. He was a future maker, and he was a serial future maker. He did it a few times, and I suppose a fantastic influence in terms of that. So let's maybe move on. So I want to talk about Avaya. Now we'll kind of switch gears. And as I said, Avaya is a business communications company. That's what we do. Our heritage is in the world of telephony. That is our heritage, but we're a lot more than that now. And the world of business communications is a lot more than that. So some of the things that we do, we're a global leader, as I say, and an innovator in the world of enterprise communications. And we deliver solutions to people who've got things like call centers, people who run a business communication system who need, video telephony, audio telephony, voice conferencing, messaging, all the sorts of things you need in a business to be able to do business, to either talk to the people within the company or to talk to your customers in the outside world. And we develop the technologies that do that and that make that happen. And that's really what we're about. So some of the areas, some of the numbers, 90% of the Fortune 500 companies would have an Avaya solution somewhere in their company. 1 million customers worldwide. It's absolutely massive. Number 1 in voice messaging and unified messaging. Call centers. Enterprise telephony, number 2. So Avaya is a world leader in these areas. And I suppose the good news for anybody here today is that we're here in Galway, and we have a world-leading R&D centre on your doorstep in Merview. And we'll talk a little bit about, I suppose, what we're going to do there. So this is, I think it's another video clip. There's no sound again, so apologies for that. The purpose of this video clip is really to show you some of the technologies that we in Avaya do. So some of those touchscreen technologies that you see that you'd be familiar with from something like an iPhone, we are applying to communications products, business communications products. Applying that same technology, be it on your desktop or be it on a mobile device, an iPad or an iPhone, and then linking that in with all of the other business communications applications. So from a day where we used to be maybe a telephone type company, we are more an applications company today. My heritage, I graduated here as would be called a hardware engineer from electronic engineering back in '86. And I'd say for the last 14, 15 years, I have had nothing to do with hardware. It's all been software and applications, and that's what we do. We run obviously on standard server platforms from the likes of Intel and Dell and HP. Are the platforms we run on. We don't make those platforms anymore. We're not in that business of making those platforms, but all our applications run on those platforms. So just moving on in terms of Avaya Galway. So we're a global R&D centre, and we're one of the most significant centres within Avaya. There's over 200 R&D professionals covering all the areas of product development on site. So from the concept phase, in terms of dealing with customers, dealing with partners, and formulating what product we're going to do, or coming up with brand new ideas for things that have never been done before. And we have a huge output of patents. So there's an awful lot of innovation, an awful lot of new ideas. Some of it gets into the products, some of it doesn't. We own effectively the development of Avaya's next generation contact center. So all of you here would I assume, use a contact center. You might use it for banking, you might use it for topping up your mobile phone, updating your insurance. Everybody in this room uses contact centers and has an experience of using contact centers. Contact centers are now no longer just voice. There used to be a day where you'd dial in and you'd listen to a voice message, please wait for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and then somebody would answer the phone. Now contact center is all about the web, it's about email, it's about video, it's about a rich experience. It's not constrained to the way it was with voice. We also have a customer experience center. That's one of the important things we have. We bring customers from all over Europe and all over the world on site into our premises in Galway. They actually meet the engineers. The engineers do the demonstrations for them. We don't get marketing people to do the demonstrations. We get engineers to do it, because the customers then believe in the engineer. There's a credibility. And the engineer then gets the feedback. They see what the customer wants. Because the number one thing for us is our customers. That's how they pay for what we do. And if we listen to our customers, we will continue to be successful. So that's a key thing. And the bottom point on this slide, and one of the reasons I'm standing talking to you today, is we are due to start expanding in the next couple of weeks. And you will see announcements with regard to this. So we are looking for new talent. We're looking for it today. We're looking for it next year. So for people who are going to be graduating next year. And I'm sure we will be looking for it even beyond that. So the good news is that 200 people is growing. And we're looking for people in all areas of competency that can facilitate and help in the product development that we do. So I think we may have another video here. And this video is actually, again, apologies for no sound. This is a video taken on site in our premises in Galway. And it's to kind of show you the real people that work there. This is the real place. This is Merview. This is the 200 people that I talked about doing their day-to-day job in Merview. That picture up there is actually of our patent wall board. You can see the plaques on the board there. They're issued from the US Patent Office. And so if you get a patent or you're part of a patent, you'll get one of those. And we've an awful lot of inventors on the site here. So this video, again, apologies for without the sound, but just to give you a feel for the day-to-day working in that environment. And I know for those of you who are fortunate enough to maybe get a placement as an intern, you get that experience firsthand. But I would like to invite you, and as part of this, if people would like to come on site and actually see the place, go into our demonstration center, take a walk around, actually meet some of the engineers, I'd like to open up that invitation, and we can arrange groups to come on site. So I'll throw that open to you. Some of the other things here is just showing some of the events. So we're a group of people. We work together. There's an aspect of family and friendship between people. If you don't get on with the people that you work with, if you don't enjoy coming to work, then what is the point? So while we're focused in terms of what we want to do on the business side, we like to relax, we like to enjoy ourselves, and we like to work as a team. And that's one of the key things in terms of working in a company like Avaya. And it's the same for a HP or a Microsoft. That aspect of working as a team, the aspect of sharing experiences together, be they in the work environment or outside, helps strengthen the bond, help the trust between people, and help stimulate ideas so that people can become those future makers and make those changes. So again, that's our wall of honor, as you can see there. And if you come on site, you'll get to see that. So I suppose the message I want to give you is we're on your doorstep. Avaya isn't a very well-known brand in the public because we don't sell directly to the public. We don't make telephones that you would buy normally as a person in the street. We sell to companies and to enterprises. We sell to all the major banks. We sell to all the major government institutions. They use our equipment, and that's the communications equipment that they use. So you wouldn't have that visibility, and I know we've been mistaken for other various companies with similar sounding names. As indicated earlier, Nortel actually would have been the heritage for the site. So in 2010, the group in Nortel that occupied that site was acquired by Avaya. We were part of the Nortel enterprise business. We actually were doing things like voice over IP. We were doing contact center applications in those days. And one of the reasons Avaya acquired us is because they wanted to acquire the technology and they wanted to acquire the expertise, the people that are there. So that was just hopefully give you a little bit of a feel. In terms of some of the areas of technology and the skills that we're looking for, these are the things that we're looking for on the slide here now. So it really covers all of the range of software applications development skills, communications type skills in terms of protocols and knowledge of various technologies and domains. These are the things we're looking for. And hopefully you'll be able to look at that and say, yeah, there's a few things there that I'm interested in, or I'm studying right now and I'd like to actually do when I graduate. And as I say, this is growing. Traditionally, communications used to be quite slow moving, but today it's right up there. We're right up there with the Apples, the Googles, and all those other IT type companies. That's where Avaya sits. We're using the next generation technologies, and hopefully we're developing new technologies in areas of speech, for example, and general areas of communication and the way of doing business. That's our business. That's what we do. We do communications well. So if you see some things up here and if you've got some of these skills, we'd certainly like to talk to you. Or if you know people who have these skills, we'd also like to talk to them. So we're nearly at the end. So my message to you is, do you want to be a future maker? Do you see yourself as somebody who can perhaps work for somebody like Avaya and actually make a contribution to actually change something, come up with whatever that next generation is, in 2020, that your name will be on some product or some new service or some new idea that is actually changing the world at that point in time. And that's kind of the challenge I want to put out for you. Do you want to be part of that? And hopefully in Avaya we can help you be part of that. Just got the web link there, and I know if you go to our desk you'll get some more details, and so we'd like to hear from you. And whether you're graduating this year, next year, or the year after, please keep in touch with us, and we'll see if there's something we can do with you. So, just for the last piece, I'm going to throw it open to the floor if people would have any questions.
How many graduates have you got from NUI?
Of the 200, I'm guessing now a little bit. I would say we'd probably have of the order of about 25 to 30. It could be even a bit more. We would typically have graduates, we'd have a good few from UL. I actually would say we would probably have more graduates from UL, but that was probably more the courses traditionally that UL did actually fitted a bit more, and we did a lot of internships with UL historically. But that doesn't change going forward. I mean, personally, I'd like to see an awful lot more people come from NUI Galway, and that obviously it's my hometown, my home college, and I would like to see that. And it's, so we've had people from other parts of the Western Corridor, people from Dublin. A lot of people in, let's say, the last 3 to 4 years would have come in from overseas. So we've had overseas graduates come in, or overseas experienced engineers coming in to fill, because we didn't have the people locally. There weren't enough people locally here that we could recruit to fill the vacancies we had. And we can see that happening in the future. And one message I'd like to give people here is there's a fantastic career here. It's not just as a software programmer or a software developer or a tester or whatever aspect of technology you're involved in. There's a career that will span multiple years. You'll get it doing other things than just software development. Your knowledge of the product, your ability to work with customers, your ability to sell, those are things that will see your career move into other areas, move into product management, move into sales, move into support roles, whatever. It's not just that. So don't think that I'll be pigeonholed, I'll just be working at a desk, working at a computer all day. It's the start of something more than that. And so you should see it as that. They're fantastic careers. These are well-paid jobs, excellent careers, and the experience that you gain, you can bring globally. Any of the people that have been through our doors who've moved on over the years are in leadership positions all over Galway, all over Ireland and abroad, because of the fantastic experience that they got. So, I mean, we've had probably a lower percentage of NUI graduates than I would have been happy with, but we want to change that.
One more question. You have a big office over in the States. How do you deal with the time overlaps, which are multi-continent teams?
One of the things we do is we do allow people to have a flexible working time. So if your day involves a lot of work with people overseas, then you may start work at 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. You may be working on till 5, 6, 7 in the evening. A lot of people now can work, because of broadband and the capabilities people have, they can work as effectively in a home environment as they can in the office. I can do video conferencing at home. I can do all of the normal work I would do from my desktop or my laptop. I can do that actually at home as efficiently as if I was in the office. So that's a way that we've given flexibility to people. Typically, yesterday is an example. I went home at 4 o'clock yesterday. I had 3 calls going on till 7 o'clock at night. I was able to do it all at home. And so that's the way we can work the time zone.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Anybody else? I have a question. You've challenged people to be future makers and also thrown it out there to people that there are lots of opportunities in Avaya. So what is it that our students would put on their CVs, let's say, or tell you at interview that, well, at CV stage, I suppose, first, that would convince you that this is somebody who's a future maker? What's the evidence you'd like to see on the CVs?
Well, the first thing is we'd like you to be yourself. So if anybody ever comes in for an interview, now the CV is important. That gets you the first gate. That gets you the interview in the first place. So obviously we'll look at your record in terms of academic record. We'll look at what other things you've done, what sort of project work you've done. That's particularly important. We like to see people who are able to go away and maybe do the quality of the project work. The amount of sort of innovation, the amount of ownership, the amount of analysis that they've done through project activity or maybe work placement activity. They're things that will actually differentiate you. We do look for a solid degree, so we absolutely are looking for people who are honours graduates. I'll be honest about that. That's your ticket to get the interview in the first place. But after that, we're looking for people who can stand on their own 2 feet, who can think, who can solve problems. And so at an interview, my advice is to be as honest, because one of the things at an interview we want to be sure is that, one, it is the right thing for you. And that the role perhaps that we assign you to is the right role for you as well. So it's very important to be honest about the things that interest you, that you like doing, and the things that you don't like doing and that wouldn't interest you, so that we can get a good fit. And all I would say to you is be as open and honest as you can, but do focus at undergraduate level in terms of project activity. Focus on things that perhaps can extend your knowledge beyond what you cover on your course. So we do like to see people who work in various technologies, maybe as part of a hobby or as part of something else, and that they can show us that they've gone and done things outside of the normal day-to-day course activity that will show that that's somebody perhaps who is a future maker. They can do stuff on their own, they've got ideas, they don't need to be led, they can lead in terms of developing something. And so that's the kind of people we're looking for.
Right, any other questions? Any comments on the gender balance in the sector?
Yeah, I think it is unfortunate, and I think it's more of an Irish phenomenon than it is perhaps in other parts of the world. The gender imbalance, and that's certainly something, you know. I don't like to say we'd like to positively discriminate, but I think we would look to do that. I would certainly like to encourage a broader gender base. In terms of this. This is an area, there's nothing exclusive in the world of IT or software development that it just needs to be guys doing it. And you need a broader perspective. And I think in terms of getting a gender balance, and also it's good having a balance of different cultures, that brings new ideas, that brings things that aren't there. If you don't have a full representation in the room, if you're developing a new concept or a new idea, you're going to miss something. So I would certainly encourage any students, any of the female students here who aren't perhaps considering a longer term career in this area. This is a fantastic area. Some of you might have met Adele at the stand this morning, who works on my team. Adele is having a fantastic time. She's a very talented engineer, very good software engineer, and she's set out a very good career in this. So there's a fantastic career. Don't limit yourself and think that this isn't a space. So I just throw that out and encourage you. It is a fantastic career for any girl or young woman to get involved in.
Okay, have we any final questions? All right, so, well, on behalf of NUI Galway, I'd like to thank Eugene for coming and giving his time today, and we look forward to you getting lots of applications for these students. Thanks very much.
Thank you all. Thanks for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe there's going to be a draw now for an iPad or something.
Hi guys, the draw for the iPad will be on the main stage in 2 minutes. If you're not in the room, you cannot win. If you are not in the room, you cannot win the iPad.